One of the things I really like about this board in particular is that it takes an SDHC card. So you can plug that straight into the digital audio workstation of your choice on a computer, and it plugs right in back there in the back. So this is the ZoomL1 as we're looking down on it. Most of your heavy lifting is done on the whole left-hand side with 16 channels. Actually, 20 if you count the other ones that are used for electric piano and such. But that whole left-hand side is where you do your heavy lifting. The whole right-hand side that we'll look at right now, at the very top you have 6 different discrete monitor mixes you can send out, either to in-ear or powered monitor, if in our case. Right below it's just the recording interface for the SDHC card. You hit the record button and you're up and running, 16 pristine channels. Below that you've got these equalization basically on the green knobs, and then on the other knobs those are effects. And then for the most part, you just need a little reverb sometimes. That's about it, because we have effects on our pedals on our guitars already. And then right next to that is the blue knobs. Those are like master volumes for the effects and ways to choose them and set the delay and things like that. The little blue knobs at the bottom, right next to the red master volume knob, are ditto, just like master volumes for the effects. How much of the effect do you want put on? So you can really tweak it between that and the individual channel mixes. So as I said, most of your heavy lifting is done on the far left, which we're going to get to in a minute. But basically it consists of your input, phantom power, the little red button in case you need it. Right below that, pad, which you do not want to turn on. It cuts out most of the volume, usually used for things like the kick drum, in which case you compensate by putting the gain up real high. Which right below that is the gain, and then right after that comes compression. We'll get to all these in a second. Gain is how sensitive the input signal is. And then as we go down to the very bottom, you see the fader, and that's what sends the signal out, the clean signal that we have, and mixes it really to the main monitor mixes in front of house speakers. So when you first fire up the mixer, the first thing you notice is all those little green things. And in this particular mixer, I've already pulled all the faders down to 0 except Robbie's vocal up in here, number 3. And that's the only one I'm going to be playing with today. But you see all those little green things? That was the last time we mixed it. We saved that mix, and in order to do anything with it, you have to take the fader down in here, for instance, past the mark, exoing it out, bringing it back down, and then bring it up, which is the reason we get feedback when you first turn on the thing all the time, because until you take it past that mark, it's going to go ahead and feed back. But at any rate, it remembers all those settings from before. We're just going to concentrate on one today, number 3, and that's going to be Robbie's vocal, the one microphone we have hitched up. Just to recap, we have one microphone. I'm going to hold it about, probably about that close to my mouth at all times, so you can get an idea just talking regularly or sometimes singing as we're playing with levels later on. And I'm going to take that one microphone and I'm going to plug it into the number 3 slot, which is Robbie's vocal. Just looking up there just for a second on that microphone input, they take either a 1/4 inch or XLRs. And if you go down, there's that little switch that says 48 volt. You want to make sure that that is in fact turned on if you're using a microphone that requires phantom power. We have 2 of them. Both of them are on the drums. So the drums should always have that turned on the 48 volts. Now you'll notice next to it in the far left, the first 2 channels have high Z written on them. Those are reserved usually for things that aren't amplified or don't have a preamp, possibly the harmonica, for instance, or an electric piano, something like that, or an acoustic guitar. So those are always the best to use. Next to it, it says pad, and that's what you don't want to push. You push this little pad thing down in there, and what happens is it cuts all of the high end and most of the volume off. And it's an easy thing to push in. You can't hardly tell it's on. And when you do, you're going to lose all the signal. And so that's what happened before. We want to leave those pads always proud, as they say in construction. Down here we have some really important areas. And I'm just again concentrating on Robbie's vocal in number 3. So as we go down, the first thing you see is a gain. And what that is how sensitive the microphone is, in fact, to the input. Now, we're all using microphones, but we've got various volumes. We've got lead guitar, we've got vocals. The lowest common denominator being vocals. You want to be able to hear people talk. And so I'm going to record a little bit of this in just a second. But I want to talk about that gain being what you set first. And what you want to make sure of, I'm going to talk into the microphone here about 1 inch from my face and adjust the gain. Yeah, here we are. And just keep cranking it. Check 1, 2 until that light goes into red. If I crank it all the way up, and you can see right there, that's clipping. That's going to not be good. We really can't salvage that. And again, that's not the volume that's going into front of house through the speakers. That's just the sensitivity to the microphone and the input. So it'll be different for everything. The vocals should be the same if they're the same microphones, and then everything else is going to be adjusted, the drums and the amplifiers. So I'm going to go back to that thing and turn it until I don't get that light coming on, that green light. Try my other hand here. Here we go. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check, 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 check. And I'm trying to think about how loud I'll scream, as I'm singing, and how close I'll be to the microphone, being consistent with that. There we go. So right below that is a button called compression, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later when we switch over to the sound that's being recorded as we speak right now. We keep going down the laundry list here. We've got selection, and when you click on that button, then only that channel is selected. The rest of them will continue to play unless you come down here to either mute or solo. A lot of them self-explanatory. One right above it is record, if you're planning on recording that, and later on we will. If we're going back to the compression, we'll listen to that in just a second. So if I go down in here and just hit solo, now that's the only one that's being coming through the mixer itself. It's just muting everything else. Now when you hit the selection button, then you go over here to the far right and you set all of the parameters for that particular selected channel using these channel strips. And it's got your typical high end, the brightness, the presence, the high frequencies, the mids, and the lows, bass, treble, basically. Down on the left hand side you've got a low cut, which I'm learning that you really want to turn on most of the time. Where is it? This low cut down in here, this low cut filter. What it does is it cuts the low end rumble off of your microphones, and the one you want to leave it on is the bass guitar and possibly the kick drum. So that'd be the only one that you wouldn't turn that on, so that comes through the mix. You're reserving those frequencies for those areas that need it. Pans should always be middle. We're not doing stereo in our live sound. Up in here is your send effects. You can set your effects over here. Really just needs a little bit of wetness, a little bit of reverb. And then how much you want it to be on that particular channel. Remember, all of these over here are only affecting the one channel that's been selected. Where are we? There we are. And so that's how that works. So the whole top you set first, mostly just making sure that you're not clipping by setting the gain first for the volume of the microphone that you're using. It will be different for vocals, and it'll be different for drums, etc. And then down in here, putting a little bit of compression. Compression just raises the low notes and cuts off the top notes. A lot of times I like that on a vocal. So if you're standing anywhere near the microphone, it gives it a presence. You end up having to juggle these two things. And we'll see that in a second when we start to play around with this coming through the board. I'll record some of it. So as we go down, what you see down in here are the faders, and they're used in tandem with, all the way over to the far right, the red button called master volume. So if I turn that up right now, you should be able to hear that coming through the mic, through the amplifier. Remember, it's a simple setup: microphone into mixer, and then mixer into speaker, powered speaker. So it's really simple. That powered speaker would typically be Mark's PA speakers, the powered speakers. Anyways, so we go back down in here, and you can see the green ones. And when I get something I really like and have it dialed in, the really neat thing about it is if I can go over here, I can save these. I can save these scenes. You can see at the top, I'm going to turn this volume off and just go to the other microphone. So again, I just turned the master volume all the way off. But they're reciprocal. I can come over here and turn the fader all the way down. And all this is only controlling what's you can see I've still got VU meters. So the only thing it's controlling is what's going out to the board. So if I can turn this all the way up in here, I'll get a little bit more hiss. And then if I come back in here, I can just turn this down a little bit lower. See, that's how that works. They're reciprocal. And I like to give myself some headroom if I can. So, you know, what I would do is maybe back off the gain a lot and then come down here and maybe put those all the way up to like there, something like that. And I should be able to do that. I'm just going to give myself a little bit over here. Check 1, 2. And if I go up to the gain, check 1, 2. I'm going to turn it all the way off. So now I have no sound at all, or hardly. And then just bring that up. But look at the headroom I have down in here on my faders. They weren't all the way down there, almost at a 0. And over here, I could probably crank that up a little bit more before it starts feeding back. Check 1, 2. Yeah, check 1, 2. And the key there is if I look at the very top up here, nothing's clipping. I'm not getting anything in that red, so I'm getting a nice clean signal. If I need more volume, I've got lots of headroom here. I can bring the volume up here, which is preferable than to going over to the master, which reduces and enlarges the volume on everything. So first you set the gain, at the very top, the sensitivity of the microphone that's being plugged in. And then you set compression if you want it. You know, like I say, sometimes you don't want it. You hit the select button if you're going to go over here and adjust anything like effects, how much reverb, etc., and or the equalization's on. You know, solo and mute are self-explanatory. I'll come down here and turn off the mute, so now it's everything would be playing through. And then if I get the thing where I really like it, and I've got this thing about what halfway up, and if I come over here, I'm not going to be able to go too far, and I can just adjust this, pull this down. Goes back and forth. So now I'm going to try recording some of this stuff, see if I can give you a better idea. Don't even need the amplifier on over here anymore, don't believe, so I can just turn that off. And over here I'm going to make sure that I go over here and turn record on the area that we're recording. So the only thing left to do now is just go over here, and I'm going to push the record button. So what you're looking at here is 2 tracks, a sample track from I got offline of Master Yoda talking to Darth Sidious, assuming that that's professionally mixed and mastered. And when I look at the waveforms, I can tell already without even listening that it is. You can see how they're right at where they want to be, just way below the cutoff, where it gets clipped into the red, and nowhere near the top. In a couple areas where it's loudest, it will do that. But compare it to the top track, which is channel 3, which we have recorded, and we'll play back in just a second and look at that waveform. But take a look at a listen to the headroom and the audio of this sample comparison track. So right now I'm going to go ahead and record some to the board, and then we'll play it back and just take a look at the waveforms in a GarageBand and just see what we're getting with the one microphone I have plugged in, which we use for vocals, the trusty SM58. This is a beta. And then it's going straight into only one thing, number 3 channel, Robbie's vocal. We turn to make sure that the pad is off. We don't need any voltage power sent to it. And for starters, I'm going to put the compression at 12 o'clock. Also the gain here at the top. That's how sensitive the microphone is at that. And then I'll turn on the record button. And then I'll go over here and push record. Making sure I'm seeing some numbers go by. So the only thing I'm recording is the third channel. And I'll go ahead and pull this microphone over here close to me. So I'm going to try to keep it about, mostly about an inch from my mouth, something like that, about where we'd be singing. And while I'm doing that and singing on it, I'm going to try to keep it right about that distance. Over here, I'm going to take a look at the gain and make sure that it's not peaking out. So I'm going to turn the gain up slightly while I'm about an inch away from it, just talking in a normal voice. You can see what happens with the gain if I turn it all the way up, period. Hello there. Just talking in a regular voice, it's peaking out. And if I look at the bottom, you can see that it's doing the same thing. It's going off the charts. So we don't want that. We want a clean signal. So I'll back off of that until I'm not getting any red. And I also want to do it about as loud as I'm going to sing. So I'll go down here and double check. It's just a good place to start. And it looks like I'm at more or less about 2 o'clock on the gain. Compression is 12 o'clock. Remember that that has nothing to do with what goes out to the main speakers. This is just getting a clean signal into the system to begin with before you send it out. This fader on this particular channel, and then over here, this master volume, that really makes a difference. That's what determines what goes out to the speaker. So I like to give myself some headroom and put it right about there where the green marker is, just to start. That way I can bring it down and I can bring it up. You know, same thing over here. I like to have it about, if all possible, somewhere around halfway up. I pulled my mouth away from the microphone. Right now I'm back to about an inch from it. Okay, now just taking a look at the gain here on the third channel. I'm going to turn it all the way down on the gain, and you're probably not getting anything. I'm not seeing anything down here at all. So we'll take the gain back up. Where are we? Put it about 2 o'clock, something like that. And that's about where I want to be, where I'm singing. That looks pretty good. Now compression, what it does is it takes the low signals on your voice, especially if you move away from the microphone, and it boosts them, and it clips the high signals. So that's a good thing to put on it with the vocals in particular. It's about the only thing I'd use it for, though. So I turn it all the way down on compression. You can see what that looks like. I'm getting a signal, but it's a little bit weak. And then if I go the other way with it and turn it all the way up, you can see what's happening there, and I might even be peaking out. Yeah, so if I get up here and start singing, there's a good chance that it might peak out up at the top. So you usually have these reciprocated. You turn up one, you tweak the other. With vocals, I like a little bit of gain. And then down here, if we have the select switch selected, we can come over here and equalize, send effects, whatever we want to do with that particular channel because it's now selected. So anyways, just kind of looking at it again, if I go over here, I'm going to take the gain and play with that a little bit. All the way down, 12 o'clock, all the way up, peaking out too. So about 2 o'clock there. The gain here, the compression, leave it about 12 o'clock, something like that. Just a little bit of punch.